What's up, everybody? James Ng here. Welcome back to the MLM Business Blueprint. I'm showing you details on what it takes to leverage and scale a network marketing business. And today we're going to talk about how to make 90% plus more of your sales. If that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to subscribe and share this if that sounds like something beneficial. But you've probably heard of this saying, if you're in business and sales, that the fortune is in the follow-up. And the statistic is that 90+% of sales do happen after the first exposure. And if you've heard that, though, my question to us today is this, though, is if we know that follow-up is important, why do we not do it? And how do we do it effectively? I want to answer those because it's super important, because it's 90+% of money that's left on the table. We're going through the steps of the pipeline right now in the blueprint. So step number 5, actually, the final part is the follow-up. I want to address a couple things. First, a mind state, then a skill set. Mind state. I dealt with this a lot, which was in the beginning of my business. I know it took me a lot of effort to work up the courage and the confidence to even just approach somebody about my business. Does anyone else get scared when you approach somebody? You get scared by rejection. You get scared by the invitation. It's like, and I would finally work up the courage to do it. But if I'm to be real honest with you, if I picked up the phone and made the call or sent the message, subconsciously, I'd actually want them to not pick up. I'd want them to actually say no. And it's like the weirdest thing ever. Even though I did the work, in my subconscious, I didn't want them to actually respond. And why? I didn't want to get disappointed, I suppose. I didn't want to deal with the potential questions. It felt like it was more work to move through it than to just say, I did it, I tried it, and it didn't work. And I think for many of us, the reason why follow-up is so difficult is that we're not dealing with the mindset piece of things. And we think, I'm going to call it out, we think subconsciously that when we're doing business, we're doing sales, that we're bothering people. And because we're bothering them, we don't want them to respond because we don't want to be judged. Put a 1 in the comments if that relates at all. And it's huge that we deal with this root right there. Because if you never deal with this, then you're never going to have sales. You're never going to enroll people. And even if you do, you're probably going to see a lot of people are going to back out, not be committed, and ultimately not receive the transformation and the value that you're providing to the marketplace. So we have to deal with the root. And here's the way to fix that. You have to understand that follow-up is professional. Follow-up is absolutely professional. And it's not that we're trying to get what we want. Yes, we could be motivated by our goals. But the reason why we follow up should be that we believe in what you're providing, your product, your service, your business. You believe so much in what it is you're providing that if they're not using the product, if they're not using the service, if they're not partnering with you in your opportunity, that it would be a disservice for them to not do it. That's why we follow up. It says in the word that perfect love casts out all fear. So you have to deal with this root. And the root of good follow-up is care and love. You love them so much that you want them to be transformed by whatever you're offering, that you do follow up. So that's the first thing. You have to follow up because it is priority. You have to follow up because you believe that what you have is so transformative. You have to follow up because maybe you even feel that what you have is saving them from other junk that's out there. Let's be real. There is so much that's clawing at all of our attention these days. You wake up and you got a bajillion notifications. We're targeted by ads all day. And if you believe that what you offer is better than what's on the market, shouldn't it be in their best interest that you get to them first before someone else does? I hope that makes sense. So the first part is the mindset of things, how to follow up. Then from there, the second is the skill set. How do we follow up? Well, a couple rules, and I talk about this in the blueprint, is I like to go with a 48-hour rule, right? 48-hour rule. So every 48 hours, depending on where you're in the pipeline. So let's say, for example, your last business action was you invited them to take a look at your business. You invited them to take a look at your product. If they don't respond within 48 hours, I'm going to have another touch point. So let's say I'm speaking with Talia. I invited her to take a look at my business. She didn't respond. Within 48 hours, I'll just send another friendly message. What do you say? What would you want to say if you're on the other side? So what I wouldn't want to say is pressuring someone to do something. Like, this is an example of what I wouldn't do. Talia, why'd you not respond to me? You're not a good friend. It's done. That's not what you want to do. But give them the benefit of the doubt. They're probably busy. I assume they're interested. They're just busy. So a good follow-up might be, hey, Talia, not sure if you saw, I shot you a message earlier. I shot you a call. I think there's something that could benefit you, but let me know if you got that message. I'm sure you'd want to be followed up like that, right? The best way to follow up is do it in a way that you would like to be followed up with on the receiving end. So don't pester them, don't bother them, don't be forceful, don't be annoying, just be friendly. Just be friendly. So I'm going to follow up within 48 hours, and I keep on doing this until I get a yes or a no, or at some point within a couple of follow-ups, if you feel like they're just not responding to you, one thing that I like to do is I do like to close the door. I do a last message. I do this a lot. So if you've ever had somebody where you feel like, man, they're just not responding to me. Am I bugging them? Like, this is getting frustrating on both ends. The final message you can share is something very simple. Something like, hey, Talia, I know we've been, I shot you a couple of messages. I haven't heard from you. If you're interested in hearing more about what I'm talking about, let's talk. If not, this will be the last message on this topic, but I hope you're amazing. Sometimes people don't like saying no, so I like to close that door for them. So follow up within 48 hours, touch point a couple of times, but give them the benefit of the doubt. And then the final thing that I'll say in follow up is this. One of the biggest places that I feel that we get lost as communicators, lost as entrepreneurs, lost as professionals, is that when we follow up, we get confused by where we are in the process, and we're not leading people through this process. This happens so much. So for sake of example, let's say you're in a phase in your pipeline where you're about to present to somebody your product. And what happens is the prospect gets back to you and they just start talking. You see, the pipeline works. There's a process that works. It works perfectly until you put people into the equation. Because you know what happens? People got their own minds. People want to say their own things. So let's say you're talking to someone, you want to present to them, but they start talking about something unrelated. They want to catch up. They're talking about their life. Maybe they have a question and they don't go according to plan. You're like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do here? And what happens is with the person that's not trained well is they get led by their prospect in the conversation and they never get back on track to the very first part and purpose of why you're talking to them. Why are we talking to them in a business conversation? We want to help your prospect solve a problem that you feel your business, your product, your service can help. So what happens is the prospect will derail the conversation. They will not typically bring it back to the original point because you're the one there to help them. Where we get off is we are scared to bring the prospect back to the original conversation. So it's important that we then lead with a question. So let me give an example. Let's say you're talking to someone about the business. You're like, hey, you want to take a look at my opportunity? And they're like, yeah, sure, I would love to. But I've seen a lot of other businesses before, and I don't know if business is for me, right? That maybe they share an objection. That's one example. Or maybe they just change the topic. They're like, that sounds cool, but it's been really busy recently. Hey, did you watch the latest movie? Did you watch Sound of Freedom? Right? They'll like say something that's completely unrelated. What do you do in these situations? Here's the best analogy that I've ever heard on how to deal with these. And I learned this from Tim Sales in his Professional Inviter CD, one of the GOATs when it comes to our business. I was learning this when I was 19 years old and broke. I was learning this when I was picking up my business. And he said, imagine you're driving a car. And as you're driving a car, have you ever driven and you have your windshield, and all of a sudden a bug splats onto your windshield? Put a 2 in the comments if that's ever happened to you before. You're like, oh, that's kind of disgusting. So the wrong thing to do is to stay there and stare at the bug splat. Because if you stare at the bug splat, what happens is your car is going to go in the wrong direction. You're probably going to get off road. You're going to crash. What you want to do, and that bug splat is an objection. That bug splat is your prospect response that is not in the direction that's going to help them get what they want. What you want to do is remove the attention from the bug slap, put it back onto the road, put it back on the destination. The destination is what they want. The destination is how you're going to help them. So deal with the objection, deal with the distraction, deal with the bug splat. You have to address it still. You can't just pretend it's not there. Deal with that and then move it back. So let's say, example, it's an objection. I've tried other businesses before and they just never worked for me. My goal is not to do some crazy surgery here and solve it all the way. I just want to deal with it enough where they feel at peace with that, and then we can move back to the direction. So I might say something like, I totally understand. I'm sorry to hear that you didn't have good experiences before, but I'm curious, do you think that the fact that you didn't do well in businesses before means you can't do well in business, period? Or do you think maybe it's just you didn't have the proper support? They might be like, that's a good point. No worries. I'd love to share with you some more information, but if I can show you something that can give you the support that you need and still help you create an extra stream of income, would you be interested in more information? You see, it dealt with the bug splat, the objection, moved it back to their hot button. Example number 1. Example number 2, let's say they responded with a complete different reaction. And they're like, I'd love to take a look at business, but man, did you watch that Sound of Freedom movie? That was nuts. It was crazy. What I'm going to do, I'm still going to be aware that they talked. I'm going to have a real conversation, right? So I'll relate with it. So for me, for example, if I heard that, I tell them, yeah, I actually just saw that movie. It was crazy. I can't believe that all of this trafficking is actually going on in our nation right now. I shared it with my family, and yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. It's a great movie. Now I address that. I want to move it back to the point. But I'm curious. I know we're talking about business right now. And you mentioned to me that you're looking for an extra stream of income. If I could share with you something that can help you with that, would you be interested? They'll be like, oh, yeah, that's right. Right. You see, they need to be led. The prospect needs to be led towards something that can help them get what they want. So our job as a communicator is to deflect whatever those bug splats are, those objections, those distractions, and follow up on the next step in the pipeline. And remember where you were. If you're in the invitation phase, go back to the invite. If you're in the presentation phase, go back to the presentation. If you're answering questions after the presentation, go back to that. Wherever you are in the pipeline, go back to that exact same step and move forward. And it's like this dance that happens. It's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But eventually you're going to lead them towards either helping them with what you're providing or not. But as a professional, follow-up is so crucial because 90+% of sales do happen in the follow-ups. It takes on average 7 to 11 follow-ups, touch points for someone to say yes to buying anything. If we understand that, then instead of trying to fight the game, let's play it. Let's understand it. Let's become professionals at it and have fun with it. Because once you master this, oh my gosh, you're going to see how you're going to be able to serve so many more of your clients in such a powerful way. So if that was helpful, I think this is one of the big pieces that is the reason why people do not convert more, If this was helpful, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube for this, plus a lot more cool information as well too. And by the way, if you're in network marketing and you would like a step-by-step system on all these types of things we're talking about, I do have a blueprint of a skill set and a mindset. If you'd like some more information on that blueprint, then feel free to message me the word blueprint. And I have a video I'd love to be able to share with you. But hopefully that was helpful. Tune in for the next one.